everybody around the globe. This is Heather Lockett with Lasting Conversations, and I am here with a dear, very, very old friend, Dr. Laurel Geise. Hi, Laurel.
Hey, Heather, how are you? Great to see you.
Good to see you. And we're beaming in across the state of Florida today. And, we're going to get into some hurricanes and turbulent times in just a moment. But what we're also speaking of today is our living our soul's dream and living with our past and our present and our future and how it can all blend together in peace and calm within the chaos, especially. And we'll touch on so many other topics. So, Dr. Laurel Geise is a doctor of ministry. She is an evolutionary educator. She's an author of this amazing book called The Jesus Seeds, and we're going to get into all of that. And she was a former executive in C-suite coaching and mindfulness person in the forefront before anybody knew what the heck mindfulness even was. And so, welcome again, Laurel.
Thank you. Thank you. And as you said, we are old friends. We ourselves are not old. Our
Right.
relationship is old over time.
Exactly. That was sort of the
Wink,
universal
wink.
wink is that we have tangibly in these bodies known each other for, I don't know, 10, 12 years, but we are part of an ancient of days family,
Yes,
an
we are.
ancient of days family. So speaking of which,
Yes.
Laurel, talk to us about that whole genesis of your book, the Jesus Seeds, and actually anywhere that you would like to begin with your own soul's journey and the birthing of so many amazing things that are here to help all of us on the planet.
Oh, thank you, Heather. Well, yeah, I think what I'd like to do is just go back several years, probably 30 years now. And I was in a very dark, turbulent time in my life, right? As we all go
Yeah.
through. And my husband had recently died. And I found myself in a really deep depression, really depressed. And I happened to meet Dr. Deepak Chopra through a series of synchronicities, as life does, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
following those synchronicities, I ended up in La Jolla, California, and he taught me how to meditate, and it changed my life. It absolutely changed my life. Not only helping me to understand how I could be more centered and more grounded and to release everything that I was feeling, but it also started to open me up on that spiritual journey, right? That
Mhm.
awakening was happening. And then I loved it so much, I became a meditation teacher. So I was working in corporate during the week and I was teaching meditation on the weekends. And through my meditations, I was guided to start soul guided journaling, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But um, as I meditated over the years, I just became aware that my consciousness was expanding. That my consciousness was it was becoming more and more, and in that expansion was coming new experiences. And so one new experience that I had was the birthing of the book. And the book is called The Jesus Seeds. Okay, so you just got to sit with that for a second. So here I am in corporate America. I come home, I'm meditating in my chair. I like to sit in a chair. I can't sit on the floor cross legged. Can't do it. Got to sit in a chair. So I'm sitting in a chair, my eyes closed, meditating. And the next thing I know, I am standing in a desert. And it's as real as this. I'm standing in a desert and I can feel the cold desert air, the breeze on my face. I'm looking out across the desert and I see these mountains in the distance and the sun's about to come up. And I look down and in front of me, there is a ritual bathing pool filled with water. And what I know at this moment is that I know that it's 2,000 years ago. I know that I'm in a scene, which I didn't even know what that was.
Mhm.
I knew I was getting ready for my morning prayers and I was going to cleanse myself before my morning prayers. So I remember touching the water. And as soon as I touched the water, I was back in my living room in my chair. And I was like, whoa, what was that? Right? That was quite an experience. So it was a glimpse into a past life. And what was interesting is that I didn't know what an Essene was, but the Essenes were a wisdom sect that lived in the desert in Qumran about 2,000 years ago, around the time of Jesus. And I wrote about this in my soul journal because I'm like, no one's ever going to believe this story, nor am I going to tell anyone this story. It's not going to happen.
Was I just tripping or what just happened
Exactly.
here?
What
Yeah.
was that, right?
What was that?
So, I go back to life, and many years later, I go on a trip to Israel. So I'm on this trip in Israel. Didn't really think too much about it, and then one morning we had private access to go into Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in the 1950s, and I was like, this is amazing. We're going to Qumran. Still didn't make the connection with that experience, though. So we get in to the archaeological ruins, and I'm walking around, and the sun's, behind the mountains about to come up. And as I'm walking, I get separated from the group, and I'm all by myself. And as I'm walking through, like, things are feeling familiar. Okay, there's just like, I know I need to turn left here and turn right there. And all of a sudden, I turn the corner, and there I am, and I'm standing. And in the distance, I can see the mountains, and the sun's about to come up. And I look down, and there in front of me, swear to God, is a ritual bathing pool. Now, there's a sign. It says ritual bathing pool, right? But there's
right here.
Right there,
Ritual
right here.
bathing pool.
Exactly.
Right
Follow the signs, right? So there it is. Now there's no water in it, but at that moment, this energy came into my body and knocked me to the ground. So now I'm in the Holy Land, laying on the ground, having an experience. And all this information just came into me. And it was like this giant confirmation that, yes, you were here 2,000 years ago. You were in a scene. You were learning the wisdom that this group had. And that, Christ had shared with them, Jesus had shared with them, and that, we were, let's say, embedded with these seeds of Christ consciousness. And that when the time was right, when humanity was ready to like step into this higher level of awareness, higher level of consciousness, these seeds would open and the wisdom would be shared. And here's the kicker, that I would write a book called The Jesus Seeds. Well, I didn't tell anyone about this. I wrote this in my soul journal, and I was like, not gonna happen. I am not gonna write a book about my experience in the Holy Land, because I have this corporate job, and I'm like, not gonna happen. Well, so many years go by, and it was January 2nd, 2012. It was a Sunday.
Oh.
So my
Sorry,
day,
I just have to laugh about the 2012.
2012.
Right on cue, as if on
Right?
cue. Right.
Exactly. And I mean,
Right.
I was in Israel in 2008, so it took a long time,
Wow. Okay.
for this to really manifest, right? And so I was very busy at work, and I worked 6 days a week, but Sunday was my day. Sunday was my day. So I would meditate, just allow myself to write, receive. So I started meditating, and I kept hearing the words, the Jesus seeds, like over and over and over. It was almost like a whisper. It's like a thought in your mind. And I call it listening with your divine ears, right? So we're hearing this, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should write this down. So I started writing, and I wrote every single Sunday until April 12th. And the book was complete on that day, and that day was Easter morning.
See, this is where you can't make this stuff up. I call that Kamsu. Kamsu, you cannot make this stuff up.
Cannot.
It's the providence of it.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So now I have the book. And I'm like, well, I began to understand. And then I went through another turbulent time in my life, was that I really needed to share this book, because when I received it, it felt far greater than I. Have you ever had that experience where
Yeah.
something comes through you? You're the vessel, the vehicle, however you want to say that, but you have received something that would be a benefit to others. You
Right.
just know that it was
Right.
given as a gift and it needs to be shared. So I ended up leaving my corporate career, which everyone thought was nuts because I was at the peak of my career. But I really felt like my soul was telling me, this is your destiny, right? This is why you're here. And one of the things with soul guided journaling is you get these, I call them the mantras or sayings that are specifically for you that you can use
Hmm.
in your life. Sometimes I call them soul mantras. But the one that came through to me around this time was this. So, your soul's calling is the answer to someone else's prayer. Your soul's calling
Yeah.
is the answer to someone else's prayer. And as
And
I,
it's so true. I'm going to pop in for a second to let that land. I'm
Mhm.
hearing it. I'm hearing that. But for everybody listening and then watching, your soul's calling is the answer to somebody else's wishes and
Prayer.
prayers. Yeah.
Exactly. So when
Yeah.
you think about it, it kind of took me out of the me-ness of it, right? This is about me. It's not about me. It's about
Right.
service.
Yeah.
And the fact that, I'm being called by my soul to share this. And there are people out there right now praying for this information to show up, right? For this book to show up in their life. They don't know it,
Mhm.
but that's what they're praying for. So that helped me to get through that time, which was very difficult. I was filled with fear, filled with fear, But once I got on the other side, there was a whole series of synchronistic events. As soon as I called my boss and said I was going to retire, and I gave them like a month, I said I'll stay for a month to make sure everything's turned over. And as soon as I hung up the phone, my mom called and my father had emergency surgery. I had to leave, and I never went back to work. So,
Well, and then
like,
so get the beautiful timing of that. That the
right,
decision was made so that you were prepped and ready to go.
exactly.
And again, this feels it's all our heart. We can walk our lives and sometimes think, we've made all these decisions, but when we allow some spaces, we go, oh my gosh, the steps are laid out for us. So
Yes,
there you were, ready and completed to now be of service or whatever you needed to do with your dad and your family. That
exactly.
it yeah.
Right. And
Ah,
yes. So it was a combination of, it was time to take care of my parents, which I do, and which I have for the last 10 years. They're in their late 80s. And at the same time, begin to share the book, begin to teach and share. And, I just, in my experiences, and we've all had, different experiences. Sometimes we have mystical experiences, but one thing that I've discovered for me that holds true is that, we are living our soul's dream. And I believe that, you're a soul and I'm a soul, and that we have this divinely architected life, and that this beautiful life was completely planned out for us before we even were incarnated, you know and
mhm.
and this actually comes from an experience I had with so I was studying with Dr. Brian Weiss. He's very well known for past life regressions and also future life progressions. And so I was studying with him, and one of the experiences that I had was this. It was at nighttime and I was sleeping, but I was aware that I was sleeping, and I kind of woke up and I found myself like out in the universe. So imagine you're out with all the stars and it's so beautiful. And in front of me, there was this grid. It was like a grid lit up. And at each of the cross points, the little choice points, I call them, there were like little colors. So it'd be like blue and red and yellow and turquoise and colors we didn't even know. And so I'm looking at this beautiful grid. And on the other side of it, there's another soul. And we are literally having a conversation about, like, when we incarnate again together, this is how that's going to go. And we laid the whole thing out. And then I came back and I woke up and I was like, that's quite amazing. That was like an in-between life experience, right? And that changed my whole worldview, because I was like, the soul has planned this out and here we are living it. And I feel like it's a combination of predetermination and free will. So,
It's beautiful.
it's like both, right? Like, the path is laid out. And for us, the free will is, do we choose to move through this with grace and ease, or struggle and strife? So that takes us into that whole idea of trust, right? And surrender.
I love it. I love it. And one of the questions that I had, that, excuse me for starting to blur it a second, is the beauty of that is, did you get an indication of whether that was, in those ethers, was that an aspect of yourself that you were speaking with? You're talking about an in-between life, but were you speaking to an aspect of yourself, a star particle being of yourself, or did it feel like maybe other or angelic or something? Did it feel like that was a part of you telling you your own information?
That's an interesting question. So let me tell you a little bit more about what happened, since you ask.
And I'm saying this because it's part of,
Yeah.
I think part of our broader service, and I'm recalling some of my further guests, that is to be able to step into more of these woo experiences. So many of us have been so closeted, or we think we're crazy, or whatever it is. So if you're having these types of experiences, know that you're not crazy necessarily, but that it can help us understand ourselves. So I always have appreciated, and of course with really great mentors along the way to handhold and say, maybe that's a bit of a psychological thing, but even that's an aspect of me in that holographic dimensional thing. So, and you mentioned Dr. Brian Weiss, past, present, future. So
exactly.
We get messages from the Elohim or from quote unquote others, which is us too. But as you were describing that moment, I was really thinking, well, was that just a part of Laurel speaking on behalf of her, giving her her own information? I've had those experiences.
Yeah, this particular one, and I hear what you're saying, and I have had many past life experiences, and I've had future life experiences. So I've gone kind of both way in that continuum. This was a in between, and I've had other in between experiences, but this is, it's kind of like, you have those moments in life where something lands and your life's never going to be the same.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
And this was one of them, because during the conversation it felt like the soul and it felt like a soul. I was traveling with this soul through time. Right. We're traveling through time with a soul group. Right. And there are souls, like when you meet someone and you feel like you've known them forever, you probably have.
Yep. That's why we're very old friends.
Exactly. We probably have. And even that thought process changes the dynamic of friendship. To me, if I meet someone and I have that knowingness that I have traveled through time with them, the relationship it's so precious.
Yeah.
It's so precious, especially if both individuals can remember something, which has happened to me rarely, but it has happened. And you're like, wow, we truly are, immortal and eternal and traveling and having these experiences. And in this one experience, why I felt it was another soul, but a soul I travel through time with, was because this soul said that in this lifetime, and not this lifetime, but in the lifetime we were planning, right? We were charting out this between us. This other soul said to me, I need you to do this to me in this lifetime. And I said, I will not do that, because what was the request I felt was I would never do that to someone. And I said, no, I won't do that because I love you. Because I love you.
Right.
And the other soul came back to me and said, well, you will do it because you love me.
Beautiful.
So that changed the entire perspective of my life, my worldview, that, that I am meeting these old souls and we are having these experiences. And maybe there's something that, I would deem unacceptable, like I would never do something like that. But yet the other soul was saying, no, you would do that because you love me. And the soul is reincarnating here to have experience, right? And that is the experience that soul needed to have. So
Wow.
in that particular circumstance, I felt it was another
Understood. Yeah. And that's beautiful. Yeah. And that's very vital. And I appreciate when you're saying that monumental, groundbreaking shift of your own perspective. Oh,
absolutely.
I hadn't considered that. Oh, I hadn't considered that this is part of the journey. This is part of what's quote unquote meant to be. Let me just
Right.
shift my entire brain stem here.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Oh, because then that can feel so free. And I can't think of it, for instance, offhand, but I've had plenty of those moments that literally go, oh,
Oh.
okay. It's get out of my own brainstem of what I think is meant to be and move forward. Hi, everybody. Our conversation with Laurel will continue in the next episode. For right now, you can find out more on her website at laurelgeise.com. That's Laurel Geise, Geise.com. And we will see you next time.